Narcissists create disaster they can't avoid. Depressed, panicked, missing you. You finally walked away. Maybe you left them. Maybe they discarded you. Or maybe it was a slow fade, a silent goodbye that neither of you ever officially acknowledged. But one way or another, time has passed. Weeks, months, maybe even years, and you thought you were free. But somewhere, deep inside their mind, you're still there. Lingering, haunting, not because they miss you, not because they love you, but because your absence disrupted something fundamental in their world control. Because make no mistake, narcissists don't just lose people and move on. They create chaos, destruction, and emotional disaster wherever they go. And when someone like you walks out of their life, someone who once gave them attention, validation, and emotional fuel, they spiral fast. In this video, we'll uncover the truth about what happens to a narcissist after you leave. We'll reveal how they fall apart, how they panic, how they try desperately to get you back, and why none of it has anything to do with real love or remorse. You'll learn how they collapse emotionally, how they sabotage themselves, and how they end up depressed, not because they've lost you, but because they've lost control over you. If you've ever wondered whether a narcissist truly moves on, or if they secretly dwell on your presence long after you're gone, this video will give you clarity and peace of mind. So if you're ready to understand the inner world of a narcissist long after the relationship ends, keep watching, because knowledge is power. And once you know what really happens when they lose you, you can finally stop letting them live rent-free in your head. Let's begin. If you're here, it means you've either lived through the pain of being discarded by a narcissist, or you're trying to understand what happens after the relationship ends. Either way, you're not alone. Millions of people struggle with the emotional aftermath of narcissistic relationships, and many of them don't realize that the abuse doesn't always end when the person leaves. Before we dive into the heart of this topic, let's take a moment to connect. If you found this content helpful, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing this video with others who might benefit from it. Awareness is the first step toward healing, and by spreading the word, you're helping others break free from cycles of emotional manipulation and destruction. Now, let's start with the most unsettling truth. Narcissists don't just hurt you, they set themselves up for disaster in ways they can't escape. You may have thought they'd be fine without you, that they'd move on quickly, find someone new, and forget your name. But the reality is far more complicated than that. The moment you walked away, you took with you something they deeply relied on, whether they realized it or not. You weren't just an ex. You were a source of admiration, emotional fuel, and psychological stability. And once you were gone, the cracks began to show. They started losing other people too. Their charm wore thin, their lies unraveled, their manipulations stopped working, and suddenly, everything they built began to crumble around them. Because narcissists don't operate in healthy relationships. They operate in control-based ones. And once you removed yourself from their world, they had no one left to prop them up. Second, they panic when they realize they can't manipulate you anymore. For years they played their games, gaslighting, guilt-tripping, hoovering and devaluing. They made you question your own memories, doubt your emotions, and constantly seek their approval. And for a while it worked. But then came the day you stopped reacting. The day you refused to answer their calls. The day you stopped falling for their tricks. The day you simply disappeared from their life without looking back. That moment, it terrified them. Because for a narcissist, losing control isn't just about losing a person. It's about losing their power. It's about realizing that someone saw through them, stood up to them, and walked away without begging for forgiveness. And nothing shakes a narcissist more than that. Third, they become consumed with thoughts of you, even if they pretend otherwise. Despite everything they may say, despite the silence, the smear campaigns, the fake indifference, they think about you constantly. Not because they care, not because they regret what they did, but because your absence created a void they can't fill. You were someone who challenged them, someone who resisted their control, someone who exposed their flaws without even trying. And now, they can't reach you. They can't twist your words. They can't pull you back in. They can't remind themselves that they were in charge. So instead, they obsess. They replay conversations. They rewrite history. They look for any sign that you're struggling, that you're hurting, that you still carry their words with you, because only then can they feel powerful again. Fourth, they start sabotaging themselves the moment you're gone. It's strange how often narcissists self-destruct once the person who held their world together walks away. Without you, they lose their anchor, the one person who kept them grounded, even unintentionally. Suddenly, things start going wrong. Relationships fail, careers stall, friendships fall apart, and worst of all, they can't figure out why, because they refuse to see the truth, that it wasn't you who failed them, it was them, it was always them. But instead of taking responsibility, they blame everyone else, including you. Even if you haven't spoken in years, they tell themselves that everything went downhill the day you left, that you ruined their chances, that you took something from them. Of course, none of it is true, but in their minds, it's gospel. Fifth, they miss the emotional fuel you provided more than they'll ever admit. One of the biggest myths about narcissism is that they can survive on their own, that they don't need anyone, that they are completely self-sufficient. But the truth is far different. Narcissists rely on external validation to feel whole. They need admiration, attention, and emotional reactions from others to maintain their sense of superiority. And when someone like you, a strong, independent, emotionally grounded person, walks away, they feel the loss more deeply than they expected. Because you weren't just another victim. You were someone who gave them something real. You saw through their mask. You pushed back. You didn't bow down easily. And in doing so, you became one of the few people who actually mattered to them. Not because they loved you, but because you represented a challenge, a mirror, a source of energy they can't replace. Sixth, they try to hoover you back in, desperately, and sometimes pathetically. At first, they may pretend they've moved on. They'll post pictures of new partners. They'll talk about how much better they're doing. They'll spread rumors, smear your name, and act like you never existed. But eventually, desperation sets in. They realize that no one gives them the same kind of emotional fuel. No one listens the way you did. No one reacts the way you did. No one challenges them the way you did. And so, they come crawling back. Sometimes it starts subtly, an unexpected message, a vague reference to the good times, a mutual friend who mentions they've been asking about you. Other times it's dramatic, a flood of texts, sudden appearances, tearful apologies, grand gestures, and promises of change. But none of it is about healing. None of it is about making amends. It's about survival, about regaining the emotional supply they lost when you walked away. Seventh, they become increasingly unstable the longer you stay gone. Without your presence, even if it was painful, you were still part of their world. You were a constant in their chaotic lives, a known variable, a familiar target. And once you disappear completely, they start to unravel. They become more erratic, more desperate, more controlling with new people, more paranoid, more prone to emotional breakdowns. And in some cases, they even begin to suffer from depression and anxiety. Not because they're capable of real emotion, not because they're suddenly aware of their flaws, but because they've lost the very thing that kept them feeling powerful. And without that power, they don't know who they are anymore. Eighth, they envy you more than they'll ever admit. Despite everything they may have said while you were together, despite the insults, the gaslighting, the attempts to make you feel small, they actually envied you. Not for your looks or your success, but for your ability to walk away, for your strength, for your resilience, for your refusal to stay trapped in their world. To a narcissist, independence is terrifying. It proves that someone could resist them, reject them, and move on without them. And that shatters their illusion of invincibility. So they try to cover that envy with contempt, with criticism, with denial. But deep down, they know the truth. You are stronger than they will ever be. Ninth, they fear exposure, and they blame you for every crack in their image. Narcissists spend their entire lives crafting an image, one of confidence, charm, and superiority. But deep down, they know it's all a facade. And the moment you left, especially if you spoke openly about your experience, they felt the walls closing in. They worry that others will start seeing them for who they really are, that people will question their behavior, that their carefully curated reputation will crumble. Even if you've stayed silent, they assume the worst. And that paranoia keeps you present in their minds far longer than you might expect. 10th, they remember how you made them feel, but only the parts that serve their ego. At the end of the day, narcissists don't remember people for who they are. They remember them for how they made them feel. And if you made them feel powerful, admired, or in control, they'll hold on to that memory like a trophy. But if you challenged them, resisted their control, or forced them to confront their flaws, they'll erase those moments entirely, or twist them into something unrecognizable. Because for a narcissist, memory isn't about truth, it's about survival. So if you've recognized any of these truths in your own experience, know this: you are not weak. You are not broken. You are simply human, recovering from something far more complex than most people understand. You were never chosen because you were vulnerable. You were chosen because you had something real, something valuable, something they needed. And now, you have the chance to take that strength and use it for yourself, for your healing, for your growth, and for the life you deserve to live. A life free from manipulation. A life free from control. A life where your worth is not questioned, your emotions are not twisted, and your strength is not diminished. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you found this message meaningful, healing, or even just validating of your own experience, please consider showing your support by liking, subscribing, and sharing this content with others who might be going through something similar. Your small actions have a ripple effect, reaching people who may be searching for answers, validation, or hope in their own journey. Awareness truly is the first step toward healing. So many people walk through life not understanding why they feel broken, anxious, or confused after being involved with a narcissist. They blame themselves. They question their reality. They wonder if they're the ones who went too far, said too much, or failed in some way. But when you understand what narcissistic abuse really looks like, how it operates, how it affects the mind, and how deeply it can shake your sense of self, you begin to reclaim your truth. And that's exactly what this community is about, helping others break free from the cycles of emotional abuse, manipulation, and control that narcissists create. So every time you share this kind of information, every time you speak out, every time you hit that like button, or leave a supportive comment, you are doing more than just engaging with content. You are offering someone else the clarity they've been searching for. You are reminding them, and yourself, that healing is possible, and that no one has to walk this path alone. Once again, I want to take a moment to remind you to stay strong, stay aware, and most importantly, remember this fundamental truth: you are not alone. There is an entire community of people who understand what you've been through, who have lived through the same pain, confusion, and betrayal. People who once felt lost, unsure of what was real and what was manipulation. People who once questioned their worth, doubted their memories, and blamed themselves for things that were never their fault. And now those same people are walking forward with you, rooting for your healing, supporting your growth, and cheering for every boundary you set and every step you take toward reclaiming your life. You are part of something bigger now. You are part of a movement of awareness, strength, and resilience. And as you continue on your journey, know that you are surrounded by others who have survived the same darkness and are now finding their way into the light. Keep moving forward, no matter how slow your pace may feel. Healing isn't about speed. It's about consistency, patience, and compassion for yourself. Trust your instincts. Listen to that quiet voice inside that tells you when something feels off, when a boundary needs to be set, or when it's time to walk away. And above all, never forget that your strength is real. It was there long before you ever met the narcissist in your life. It carried you through the chaos, the lies, and the emotional battles they put you through. And now, that strength belongs to you fully and completely. Not to them, not to anyone else, but to you. You are not damaged. You are not weak. You are not broken beyond repair. You are simply human, recovering from something that was never meant to be easy. And that makes you incredibly powerful.